You say you want change. You say you're ready for peace, clarity, growth, all of it. But you're still gripping everything, like your life depends on it. You're still clenching your jaw when things don't go as planned, still overthinking every detail, still trying to control the outcome, as if control has ever brought you peace. And the truth is, that's the real reason nothing's changing. Not because you're lazy, not because you're broken, but because you're still trying to control your way into peace. Instead of realizing that peace doesn't come from control, it comes from letting go of the need to control. And I don't mean let go as in give up. I mean drop the fight. Drop the pressure. Drop the need to force something to become what it isn't. Because here's the pattern. You keep holding on to old ideas, to outcomes that don't serve you, to timelines that are choking you, to identities that aren't even real anymore. You say you're waiting for the right moment, the right energy, the right sign. But deep down, you know, the only thing really in your way is you. And I get it. Letting go feels dangerous. It feels like losing, like if you don't keep pushing, nothing will move. But that's the trap. The harder you push, the more stuck you feel. The more you control, the more life resists. That's why it all feels heavy. That's why nothing's flowing. Because change doesn't start with more effort. It starts with less gripping. Letting go is not passive. It's not weakness. It's not checking out. It's saying, I trust myself enough to stop forcing what's not meant to stay. And until you do that, everything will keep feeling like resistance. Because you're holding the very thing that needs to be released. You think you've let go because you're tired. Because you've said, I'm done 100 times in your head. But exhaustion isn't the same as release. Collapsing from burnout isn't the same as choosing peace. Real letting go doesn't feel like a dramatic announcement. It feels like a quiet decision. To stop chasing what keeps running from you. To stop explaining yourself to people who've already decided not to understand you. To stop checking your phone, hoping someone finally sees your worth. It's not a loud moment. It's subtle, almost disappointingly quiet. And that's why most people miss it. Because we think change has to feel powerful, cinematic, like a thunderclap. But it rarely looks like that. Real change starts when you stop rehearsing conversations that never happen. When you stop needing people to get it. When you finally stop asking for closure and just decide you're done holding the door open. Letting go isn't about pretending it never mattered. It's about accepting that it mattered and still choosing to move forward without it. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Letting go might make your life feel emptier at first, because once you release what's been taking up all your space, the false control, the stories, the fears, what's left is silence, stillness, a space where your nervous system doesn't know what to do yet. And that's where most people run back to chaos, back to the familiar, because the unknown feels scarier than the dysfunction you've lived with for years. But that space, that quiet in between, that's exactly where things start to move. Not the fake kind of movement, busy work, proving, chasing, but real movement, the kind that isn't forced, the kind that unfolds because you're no longer in the way of it. You stop micromanaging life. You stop trying to predict every outcome. You stop needing the universe to obey your timeline. And that's when things shift. Not because you pushed harder, but because you finally stopped interfering. And this is where it gets strange. Because once you stop trying to control everything, things don't fall apart. They fall into place. Not instantly, not always the way you expected. But slowly, life begins to breathe again. You start realizing that most of the resistance you felt was you, not life, not other people, just your grip on what should be. And I'll give you an example. A woman I spoke to, late 30s, burned out, emotionally drained. She told me this one story that stuck. She said she used to write out entire mental scripts before every interaction, every text, every call, not because she wanted to manipulate people, but because she was terrified of losing control. She needed every moment to go right. And if it didn't, she blamed herself. She'd replay conversations at night, wondering if she should have said something differently. It wore her down. Years of overmanaging her emotions, her image, her decisions, all of it finally broke something in her. And not in a big meltdown way. She just stopped. She let herself send a text without overthinking it. She let someone misunderstand her and didn't rush to explain. She let her house be a little messy, her schedule be a little open. At first, it felt like failure, but within weeks she was sleeping better, breathing easier, actually hearing her own thoughts for the first time in years. She said, "The moment I stopped forcing everything to go my way, life got lighter. It didn't get easier, but it got real." And that's the shift most people never get to, because they're too afraid of the gap, the space between what was and what's coming next. Letting go requires trust, not in the outcome, but in yourself, that whatever happens, you'll respond. Not react, not panic, respond. From presence, from clarity, from something quiet and steady inside you. And that's where real change comes from. Not from trying harder, but from finally letting go of the version of you that needed to try so hard in the first place. Once you stop holding on, you start noticing things you were too tense to feel before. You realize you weren't just controlling situations, you were controlling your own expression, toning yourself down, editing your instincts, keeping a version of yourself alive that was easier to manage, but not true. And when you finally drop all of that, life doesn't suddenly hand you everything you've ever wanted. It gives you something better. Space, not the overwhelming kind, not the what now kind, the kind that feels like air. You walk into a room and you don't scan it anymore. You don't prepare a backup story in case someone misunderstands you. You stop playing defense with your own truth. That mental background noise you didn't even know was always running. It starts to quiet down. You laugh a little easier. You say no a little faster. You don't replay everything you said to see if it made you look weak or cold or too much. You just let it be what it was, and you move on. And that's where the real momentum begins. Because once you're not wasting energy on protecting a version of yourself that no longer fits, you free up space to actually live, to create without second guessing, to connect without calculation, to feel without fear of breaking. People around you will notice the difference. Some will be drawn to it. Some will feel uncomfortable because they were more comfortable with the version of you that kept the peace at your own expense. Let them. That discomfort is not yours to fix anymore. You're not here to carry other people's expectations. You're not here to be the emotional regulator for everyone in the room. You're here to be fully, presently, unapologetically. And that's only possible when you're no longer shaped by what you're afraid to lose. Letting go doesn't just clear out the noise. It brings you back to signal, to self, to center. You begin to realize how much of your life was built around waiting for clarity, waiting for permission, waiting for someone to validate that it's okay to stop trying so hard. But the truth is, the moment you let go, no one claps. No one throws you a parade for finally dropping the performance. There's no big breakthrough moment. Instead, there's this strange calm, almost boring. And that's the sign you're doing it right. Because real peace doesn't feel exciting at first. It feels unfamiliar, almost empty, until you realize it's just quiet, and you've been addicted to noise. You stop checking how people are reacting to you. You stop narrating your life in your head like you're on trial. You stop measuring your worth by how productive, nice, or emotionally available you've been for everyone else. You don't need applause. You don't need a checklist to prove your growth. You don't even need to feel better right away, because you're not chasing a feeling anymore. You're building a foundation. And from that foundation, something powerful happens. You stop outsourcing your center. You stop letting every external thing define how you move. You stop letting life drag you around like a puppet on a string made of fear. You wake up and realize nothing dramatic is happening. But for once, you're not dreading the day. You're not thinking about who you need to impress or protect or explain yourself to. You just exist, and that's enough. That's what letting go gives you. Not magic, not perfection, but something most people never feel. Neutrality, stability, inner steadiness. The kind of peace that doesn't require constant effort to maintain, because it's not a performance anymore. It's not something you manifest. It's something you remember because it was always yours. And then something strange happens. You start to feel like yourself again, but not the version you've known. A quieter one that doesn't need to over-explain, one that doesn't panic in silence, one that doesn't try to fill every gap in the conversation just to make others comfortable, because you realize most of your life you weren't really being you. You were managing perception, micromanaging your personality, curating yourself to avoid judgment, rejection, abandonment, whatever fear lived deepest. But now you're not reacting from fear. You're choosing from alignment. You say no and don't spiral. You disappoint someone and don't immediately apologize for existing. You walk away without writing a novel in your head about how you could have handled that better. You just let it be. And that stillness, that pause, it feels like power. Because when you let go of needing to be everything to everyone, you create space to actually figure out who you are without all that noise. Not the people pleaser, not the fixer, not the overthinker, just you. And you'll notice something else. Your world starts to shift to reflect it, not overnight, not in a loud, dramatic way, but the energy around you changes. People who needed you to stay small, they get uncomfortable. People who match your new pace, they feel refreshing, and you stop forcing connections that cost you your peace just to avoid loneliness. You stop giving from depletion, stop performing wisdom, stop acting healed just to seem like you're doing better. Letting go strips away the story, and all that's left is presence. No agenda, no performance, no reward system for being strong, just real life finally meeting you where you are. Because for once, you're actually there. And maybe that's the hardest part. Not the letting go itself, but believing that life can still move forward without you holding it all so tightly, because you were taught that effort equals worth, that control equals safety, that chaos needs your hands on it to stay manageable. So when you start loosening your grip, there's this voice inside that panics, tells you you're being irresponsible, lazy, that if you stop pushing, everything will fall apart. But what if that's not true? What if the reason everything feels stuck is because you keep trying to manage it from fear? What if life isn't punishing you? It's just waiting for you to stop interrupting it. We think growth is adding more knowledge, more structure, more control. But most growth is subtraction, letting go of what doesn't work, letting go of identities that no longer fit, letting go of strategies that are exhausting you, letting go of timelines that were never even yours. And the wildest thing is, when you finally let go, you don't become passive. You become clear, decisive, aligned. You move, but you're not running. You act, but you're not reacting. You show up, but you're no longer doing it to be chosen. You're doing it because you're rooted. This is where your life begins to shift. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stepped out of the way. So now the question isn't, how do I fix everything? It's, what am I still holding that I'm not meant to carry anymore? If you're honest with yourself, really honest, you already know the answer. And maybe today is the day you stop clinging to what's already asking to be released. You're not failing, you're unfolding. You're not letting go and losing yourself. You're letting go to meet yourself for the first time without all the noise. And from that place, things finally begin to move. If you felt that, drop the word release in the comments. Just that. One word, no context needed. You'll know why.